Hello and welcome to Mindshift. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for some tools and tips on how to become your best self. Today, I'm talking about fear and how fear is a superpower of being human. It is one of our greatest gifts of being human, and if you think about it, we would not have survived without it. I mean, if you think about how it's protected us and got us to where we're at today, then we can understand how whenever we have become fearful, it's activated our fight or flight. When it's activated our fight or flight, then this has literally protected us and kept our species going for eons. It's pretty amazing, right? It's really, really amazing that this thing that we spend so much time avoiding has actually got us to where we're at, has helped us survive, helped us to actually thrive. It makes us pay attention to things and it makes us act. It is a resource for where we want to go. Now, this was an interesting concept when I was first learning about this, simply because I've spent so much time in my life avoiding fear. And why? Why do we do this? Well, it's because of our brain. It's because of our amygdala in our brain, which says, pay attention to this and avoid it. Avoid it so you don't die. Fight it if you must, but let's just get away from it. Let's get away from danger. That's how it's protected us for so long, but it's no longer serving us when that is within ourselves. When we really understand that the majority of the fear that we deal with is inside our own beings, it's inside our energy centers, it's inside us. And when we close it off, then we tend to avoid. Think about any hard conversation that comes up, and is it the first thing you want to dive into? Is it the first thing you want to go to and say, hey, let's deal with this? Majority of the time, it's not. Majority of the time, we bottle up, we close down. Think about getting called into the principal's office, getting called into the boss's office when your spouse says, we need to talk. What happens? I know for me, I tend to shut down, or I used to at least. And when we shut down, we close the space, we start sending blood flow from our brain, from our heart, from anywhere that we can, and send it to our outer extremities, to our hands, to our feet, to our legs, to our arms, and get ready to deal with the challenge, to run. But we can't run away from ourselves. When this is within ourselves, then we cannot run away from it. If we can't run away from it, then we spend all this time avoiding it. If we spend all this time avoiding it, we literally are locking up energy within ourselves. We won't have access to it, and we are actually diverting resources to fight something that isn't really there, because it always exists within us. If it always exists within us, then we're not dealing with it. If we're not dealing with it, then we're not utilizing one of the greatest resources we have. Fear is a guide to grow. It is. If you look at it, it's a target to rise up to the occasion. And we've always done this, but we're not doing that within ourselves, are we? A lot of the times we will completely avoid it altogether. Think about having that conversation with your boss of saying, you know what? I'm worth more. These are my credentials. This is what I've been doing, and this is what I want. But it's so hard to have that conversation. It's so hard to go in there and even stand up for yourself and present for yourself of what you deserve, right? And when we do that, then we are running away. We are locking up this emotion within ourselves, and we can't ever get away from it. It'll start replaying in our heads. It'll start replaying in our lives. And as a result, we don't really utilize this resource. When we realize that fear is a guide to grow, it's our target, it's a challenge to say, hey, I can rise up to this, I can learn and I can do better, then we can start utilizing this resource within ourselves, have more energy, and actually create more of what we want in our life. When fear gets stuck within us, we stay stuck and stagnant. Isn't that interesting? When fear gets stuck within you, think about whenever you become fearful in any situation and You feel that tightness. You feel that heart space closing up. I know I do. And as a result, we don't have access to that energy. We are literally diverting resources. When we don't have access to that energy, we bottle it up. We leave that fear stuck within us. And as a result, we don't utilize this resource. It is a resource. It is a resource for us to do better, for us to rise up. And once we start flipping the narrative on how to do this, then we can understand that we have access to greater energy. We don't have to let it stay stuck. We can let it flow. We can literally practice being open and letting it flow through us. Now, there is a great video on YouTube where they talk about the same sensations that we have when we are excited are the exact same ones that we have when we're fearful. It usually involves a faster beating heartbeat, sweaty hands, maybe a raise in temperature. Same exact things that happen when we get excited or fearful. So if we change the mindset of, I get to do this, I get to work on something, I get to become a better version of myself, then we can start utilizing fear as an amazing resource to start diving into whatever it is to do better. For me, this was public speaking. Public speaking was such a hard thing for me. The reason why is because my brain would shut down, literally. I would have all these great ideas that I would want to portray, that I'd want to, tell people about, and I'd get up in front of people, and I would only say about half of what I wanted to, if that. I wouldn't go into the detail that I wanted to. I wouldn't actually explain what I'm trying to convey. The reason why is because all the resources were being diverted from my brain and getting me ready to fight or run. And with that case, I actually wanted to run off stage, right? I did not want to be in front of people. Problem is I wanted to convey all these amazing information. This amazing information that I know is going to help me do better in my life. Know better, do better, right? So what did I do? Well, for me, I joined a public speaking group. I joined Toastmasters, which met every Sunday morning at 7 in the morning. And we got to practice every single week, getting up in front of people and speaking. It's what I call a fear practice. If we develop a fear practice, then we actually start practicing taking action when we feel these feelings. And you know what happened? I got a lot better. I was able to harness this energy, let it flow through me, and be able to get up and talk and portray what I'm wanting to portray. It is a beautiful, amazing resource once we figure out how to utilize it to our advantage. It really is. And what happened as a result? Well, now I can utilize that energy to propel me forward, to tell me, I got this. This is amazing. I'm going to do awesome, right? As a result, we end up doing better. We practice so much that we retrain the way we show up in those moments. Does it mean I don't feel those feelings? No, not at all. I still get butterflies in my stomach. I still get an accelerated heart rate. But guess what happens? I take action. And when I take action and let it flow through me, I enter into this flow space and I'm able to convey everything I'm wanting to convey. It is an amazing resource if we can utilize it to our advantage. To embrace fear is to become your greatest self. Think about whatever's been holding you back. Think about whatever's been, making you fearful in your life. For some people, it's heights. I know when I was a kid, I was afraid to get on the chairlift when I would go skiing. And as a result of this, I spent a lot of time not being able to go onto the bigger runs with my brothers, with my family. It held me back, literally. Once I learned how to tackle that fear, and for me, that was the fear of heights. And I did that by practicing, by getting on that chairlift and knowing I was going to be safe. Then I was able to have access to more. When we dive into our fear, we have access to more. We have access to greater resources, to greater possibilities, and possibilities just completely expand. Possibilities is what life is all about. Without possibilities, then we're pretty stuck, right? Knowing that if we dive straight into our fear, that embracing fear is our greatest self, is our greatest resource, then we open up and expand exponentially. Isn't that fascinating? I know it was to me. There's a wonderful book on this by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. When we really understand what this book is telling us, it's saying that whatever we think is keeping us stuck is really our guide to grow. It's really the target, the challenge that is saying, hey, if you do this, you will become your best self. You will become a better version of yourself. You will accentuate everything about yourself that you love, that makes you amazing. And it's diving right into that obstacle, right into that fear, right into that thing that is keeping you stuck. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we make it 1,000 times harder if we continuously bury it, ignore it, don't look at it. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. You know, I had some childhood traumas that I had to deal with too. There's some childhood traumas that were absolutely running the show, telling me that I wasn't good enough. Now, I know that's not true. We have knowledge of this, but we know in our soul, into our inner beings, whether or not we're living it. If I'm trying to become the greatest version of Cody that I can be, but there's this inner programming telling me I'm not good enough, oh man, it is such a huge burden to carry. You are literally locking up this energy within you. And when that happens, then it prevents us from being the greatest version of ourselves. It's absolutely amazing. Hard work, but it's amazing being able to realize it's a challenge telling us, let's dive into this. Let's go straight into this. Let's grow. Fear is our primer for action. I'm going to say it again. Fear is your primer for action. When we understand that fear pops into us and we can say, you know what, this is exactly what I need to deal with. Let's head straight into it. Then we can utilize this resource to take action, to go forward, to deal with whatever we have to deal with. Sometimes it's a business meeting. Think about going in a business meeting and how hard that can be sometimes. But on the other side of it is more possibilities, more potential, more investors, more opportunity, bigger paycheck, whatever it is. When we lean into fear, we literally bring out our best selves. Fear is our primer to take action. And you know where the greatest satisfaction comes from? Satisfaction comes from struggling well. Think about anything that's been given to you. You know, we see people all the time that are giving pretty amazing gifts. Giving in and give in pretty amazing gifts. What happens to the receiver of that gift? Well, they'll enjoy it for a moment, but are they going to take care of it as well as if they worked hard for it? Think about in high school when the well-off kids got given a really nice car. Did they take care of it as well as the person that struggled to get that car? Absolutely not. When we struggle, we have more satisfaction for it. When we're saying, man, I really want that car, that truck, whatever that is, and you're putting money away, you're working hard, you're working towards it, you end up taking care of that car, that truck, that motor vehicle better than the person that was given it. You appreciate it more. You have more satisfaction from struggling well. When we truly understand this, then it gives us more satisfaction to dive into our fears and deal with it. Struggling well creates satisfaction. Embracing fear is our prime for action. And once we struggle, we overcome that fear, we get satisfaction and we get more possibilities. And that is a winning equation. That is an amazing equation that we want to follow. So how are 3 ways to embrace fear? Number 1, ask yourself what your fears are and develop a fear practice. Now, for me, with public speaking, that was joining a public speaking group. Let's go and practice every single week, getting in front of people, getting nervous, and figuring out how to always take action despite that nervousness, because of that nervousness. And once we do, we completely retrain how our brain sees fear. Now, when I first started skateboarding back when I was a kid, I was a little bit afraid of falling. Did that prevent me from skateboarding? No, not at all. Did that mean I fell a bunch? Absolutely. I fell so much. But guess what? I overcame it. And being able to overcome it means that I had more opportunities for transportation, more opportunities for flow, more opportunities to enjoy life. That's what happens when we embrace fear. When we embrace fear, we have more opportunities. We have a much, much better resource. We can understand that fear is a resource for us to take actions. It's a resource for us to dive into something and grow to our greatest potential. Number 2, don't respond, just listen. This one can be hard for a lot of people. Think about how many times you're having a conversation with somebody and you hear something and you want so bad to respond to it. Isn't it hard to not respond? As soon as they're done talking, you want to address whatever it is that popped into your mind and likely even miss some pretty awesome information that they were saying after whatever they said that you wanted to respond to got said. It's fascinating. When we listen to learn, not listen to respond, then we grow. It's an amazing thing to be able to turn this around and just listen. And this is within ourselves too, because we have these fears that pop up within ourselves. And then we try and bury them. We try and distract ourselves. And what happens is we go into this loop. We even become judgmental of our own thoughts. Man, why am I thinking this? Why can't I get this out of my head? But what happens when we just simply get quiet and listen and even ask ourselves, what is this trying to teach me? What can I learn? How can I take action to help better myself as a result of whatever the loop, whatever is being said to us? We understand these deeper truths. We understand that this fear within us doesn't have to be. We start changing the fear within us. And it does start with being quiet, just simply listening. And it can be difficult. I know it was difficult for me. When I first started meditating, when I very first started literally just calming my mind and not responding, I had a million thoughts going through my head. It was so hard to sit there and just do nothing while I had this constant chatter in my brain. When we start paying attention to it, we can start calming it down. But I find a lot of people have a hard time just paying attention to it because it's so much. We have so much chatter there, and if we don't pay attention to it, we don't even notice that it's happening. But once we get quiet, once we start understanding that we need to listen, that we can just pay attention to it without judging it, then we can start getting rid of it. As you hear me say on the show all the time, change your narrative, change your life. If you change your narrative, you will change what shows up. When we change our narrative around our fears, around that chatter, then we completely change how we show up. Number 3, make a list of challenges and do a challenge a day or a week, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but if we can understand that our challenges are our greatest gift, we can lean into them, we can create more satisfaction, we can create more opportunities, we can create a better life, we can create a better version of ourselves. And that challenge can be whatever it is. For me, for public speaking, as that example, it was getting up in front of a group every week to go and talk. And that also meant that I would have to figure out a speech to give to a group every single week and practice it and figure out what information I wanted to convey, what was the most important information, and how to get it across to my audience so that way they were really receiving what I was saying. It can be difficult. I know it was difficult for me. I know it's difficult for a lot of people. But making a challenge that I just headed into that I wanted to do every single week made it so I completely changed how I showed up, completely changed that fear of getting in front of people. And as a result, I'm utilizing it as a resource to be able to do better, to be able to start a podcast, to be able to talk in front of people when I get called, in my school, to get up in front of people and present. It is no longer the most terrifying thing to me. And it used to be, guys. It was one of the things that I dreaded the most. But now it's an energy that wells up inside me and tells me, let's take action. We got this. And it is a beautiful thing to be able to cultivate. So again, those 3 things to embrace fear, to become your best self, is to ask yourself what fears you have and develop a fear practice. 2 is don't listen to respond. Listen to learn. This is within yourself. This is within the people around you. You will see a deeper truth emerge if you just listen and truly listen. Listen to what's being said. Listen to what's conveyed. Listen to what's not being said. What is the underlying fear that pops up around the people around you? You can start seeing it if we start listening more. And then we can start seeing it within ourselves. And if we can start seeing it within ourselves, then we can do better. Number 3 is make a list of those challenges. Just make a list of things that you want to work on and work on them, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, it doesn't matter. Preferably not monthly, because we really do need something daily to work on. Sometimes if we put a challenge a week on there, then we work on that entire week on how to figure out that challenge. But a week or a day doesn't really matter of how to challenge yourself more, how to develop that practice of leaning into that fear, leaning into that obstacle, going right into it so you can become the better version of yourself and create more possibilities and more opportunity. Thanks for listening. I really, really hope that this is as powerful as it was to me when I started learning this, and we'll see you next time.